Across the ruins of time, a whisper still echoes, a memory carried in fractured stone, fading murals, and forgotten roads. Ancient pillars, worn by centuries of wind and war, still stand as silent guardians, watching over the remains of a civilization that reshaped the fate of continents. This is the story of Rome, how a tiny settlement on the banks of the Tiber River rose from obscurity, forged by kings, steeled by republic, and crowned by empire. Its legions carved a path across mountains, deserts, and seas. Its laws laid the foundations of justice. Its languages shaped the tongues of nations. Its architecture inspired the skylines of the modern world. Its ideas echo in our cities, our religions, our governments, and in the stories we still tell. Rome may have fallen, but its shadow endures, alive in the world we inherit every day. Rome's earliest story is not a history, but a legend, a myth whispered around fires, carved into marble, and carried through generations. It is the tale that Roman citizens believed defined them, a story of divine blood, survival, rivalry, and destiny. Two twins, Romulus and Remus, born of Mars, god of war and guardian of empires. Their birth was seen as an omen, a spark of greatness in an age of chaos. Yet power feared them. They were seized at birth, condemned, and cast into the cold waters of the Tiber River. But fate refused to let them die. The river gently delivered them to safety, into the silent forest at the foot of the Palatine Hill. There, beneath ancient oaks, a she-wolf found the crying infants, and in a moment that would echo through eternity, she nursed and protected them as her own. Raised by a humble shepherd and his wife, the twins grew strong, hunters, fighters, leaders. But destiny rarely unites great men forever. Ambition carved a line between them. What began as brotherhood ended as a struggle for the right to build a city that would one day rule the world. This is the beginning of Rome, forged not only from stone and blood, but from myth, rivalry, and a brother's final choice. The day that would define a civilization began in turmoil. Two brothers, Romulus and Remus, stood divided, their bond shattered by pride, vision, and destiny. The city they dreamed of building together became the battlefield on which their final choice would be made. Remus mocked the sacred boundary Romulus marked, stepping across it in defiance. To the Romans, this was no simple insult. It was a challenge to fate itself. Tension crackled like lightning over the bare earth. In a moment of fury, fear and destiny intertwined, Romulus struck. Steel clashed, dust rose, and the cries of the twins echoed across the hills that would one day become the heart of an empire. When the dust settled, Remus lay still. Romulus, trembling, stood over his fallen brother, victor, survivor, founder. And from that act of blood and grief, Rome drew its first breath, a warning to all who followed. Greatness is never given freely. It is carved from sacrifice, conflict, and unyielding will. In blood, Rome was born, and in struggle it learned to endure. Long before Rome became myth, before the birth of Romulus and Remus, the Palatine Hill was already alive with human ambition. Archaeologists have uncovered traces of simple huts and fire pits, settlements dating back to around 1000 BC. a small world of farmers and herders overlooking the slow bend of the Tiber River. From these humble beginnings grew a community shaped by many cultures. Latin tribes from the south, Sabine families from the hills, and Etruscan influences sweeping down from the north, all converged on the 7 hills, mixing traditions, languages, and beliefs. Excavated pottery, bronze tools, and ritual objects reveal a people skilled in trade, farming, and craftsmanship. But the graves tell an even deeper story. Warriors buried with spears, shields, and ornaments of status. Evidence of a society that valued strength, honor, and protection. Behind the legend of Rome's divine origins stood real people. Farmers tending their fields, warriors defending their homes, traders crossing rivers and roads, a rugged, determined community forging the foundations of what would become the world's greatest empire. Before Rome became a republic, before it conquered continents, it was shaped by 7 rulers whose hands molded its earliest identity. These kings forged the city's spirit, its rituals, its defenses, and the very foundations on which Rome's greatness would later rise. Under Numa Pompilius, Rome learned discipline of the soul. He crafted sacred rites, established priestly orders, and bound the city not only by law, but by ritual and reverence. The heartbeat of Roman religion began with him. Then came Servius Tullius, a visionary of infrastructure and order. He expanded Rome's borders, built walls that embraced the 7 hills, created new social classes, and unified the people under a structured census. Streets, defenses, and civic organization, his designs gave Rome form. But the monarchy reached its breaking point under Tarquinius Superbus. Ambition shifted into tyranny. Massive building projects rose alongside fear and oppression. The people who once followed their kings now longed for freedom. Rome's monarchy was never merely political. It was spiritual, infrastructural, foundational, a crucible in which identity, culture, and ambition fused. And everything that came after, the Republic, the legions, the empire, was built upon the stones these early kings carved into the earth. By the late 6th century BC, Rome stood at a breaking point. Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquin the Proud, ruled not with justice, but with fear, coercion, and ruthless ambition. His tyranny weighed upon Rome's noble families, its warriors, and its common citizens alike. Whispers of revolt grew into a fire that could no longer be contained. The outrage sparked by the tragedy of Lucretia united Rome's leading houses. Lucius Junius Brutus, Collatinus, and others rose to defy their king, swearing that no Roman would ever again bow to a tyrant. Armies marched, alliances fractured. Tarquinius attempted to seize his throne by force, but the people stood firm. At last, the gates of Rome closed behind him, and the age of kings came to its end.
Rome has survived its first great trials, but its greatest struggles are only beginning. In Episode 2, we witness the birth of the Roman Republic, a fragile experiment in power and balance. But beneath the surface, tension is rising. We'll uncover the growing conflict between the patricians, Rome's powerful aristocratic elite, and the plebeians, the voice of the common people, in a struggle that will reshape Roman society forever. And as Rome fights for stability at home, a far greater challenge looms abroad, a series of wars that will test its strength and ultimately transform Rome into the dominant power of the Mediterranean, the legendary Punic Wars. Subscribe and join History Watchdog, because we don't just tell history, we examine it, question it, and reveal what really happened. History Watchdog. guarding the truth of the past.